I am Claire Majerus. I am a 2019 graduate of UNT. I moved here or to Denton in 2015, and I was an elementary music education major with a concentration in piano, and I was on the band track. So my secondary was saxophone. I graduated last spring, 2019, like a year and a half ago. And I started working in Denton ISD. I opened a brand new school called Union Park Elementary. I spent that whole year there. After the year ended, I got a job offer and I moved back home to Columbia, Missouri, which is where I was raised. So that's where I am right now. And I'm working right now at an expressive arts elementary school. It's a public school. It's very small, and we do arts integration all year round, and it's amazing. It's my dream job. I love it, and I'm so happy. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah, let's get started. So right now, my district is completely online. We had a delayed start. We started 2 weeks late, and we started virtual. So every student is one-to-one with devices, and I Zoom with them once a week with grade levels. So I have like a kindergarten Zoom, first grade Zoom, second grade Zoom. I'm very lucky that my school is very small. So the maximum students I have at one time in a Zoom is like 38. Other schools have closer to 100. So I drew the long straw on that one. There's actually a board meeting tonight that I think just started. And there's going to be another board meeting on Monday about returning to school, because my hometown was really, really bad with cases. We were one of the worst in the country for quite a long time. And now things are finally calming down. So we are back to considering coming back in person, which I am stressed about, but I am ready to see lots of smiles and lots of faces. I just want to hug kids, which I know I won't be able to do, but that's what I want. I am teaching an abridged curriculum. Our district is proceeding in more of a strict way than it usually is, because a lot of students are moving from school to school. And we also have, I forgot to mention this, our family had the option to choose to be online for the entire semester from start to finish. And so they're in a separate school, what we consider a separate school, with their own principal, their own staff. And our teachers could also choose to work at that online school as well. So even if we come back in person, that online school will remain online. So the reason we're staying more connected with our curriculum, our lesson plans, are so that our online students won't be lost when they come back to us in the fall. So I have a little bit more rigidity to what I teach, but that's only about one lesson segment is kind of rigid and in lockstep with everyone else. Otherwise, I'm teaching almost identically to how I teach in the year, just to a bunch of faces instead of to a bunch of bodies. I still do all my same procedures. I still run my class the same way. I only have 30 minutes instead of 50, but it wasn't a big change for me. Yeah, things seem to be okay. And my kids are really wonderful. I'm at a school where you opt in to a lottery to get in, and the students know that it's going to be like an arts integration school. So they know what they're getting into. So my kids are incredible, and they're really excited to be there for the most part. I love them. The one major difference, to be honest, is that I would just, if you're going to move out of state, I'm so happy with my decision, first of all. I'm really thrilled. But if you're going to move out of state, if that's part of your plan, just investigate what your income is going to be, because I took a significant pay cut moving home, and I knew that I was going to do that, and I made it work. But that was a big difference for me. That was like my main difference. Otherwise, I'm just not around that same group of like Kodai support as I was, which I really miss. But luckily, we have so much technology, and I can still connect with my Kodai friends from a distance. And that's what I really need to be around. So that's what I use the most. How's that? Well, our Kodai friends, we just get on Facebook and then text, but in our school environment, our district has purchased for us Schoology, which I find to be pretty similar to Canvas or Blackboard. and Seesaw, which is elementary specific. And Seesaw is incredible. It's kind of similar to like Class Dojo, if you're familiar with that. It is a godsend. So our kids have it on their app, on their iPad. It's an app, and I'm going to continue to use this forever. It's incredible because you can assign a kid to make a recording of themselves, that you can assign them to do like a worksheet. You can assign them to make a video of themselves, and they can do it from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. Kindergartners, day 2, were able to do what I was asking on their iPads. It was incredible. And I loved being able to, one, I'm new to the school, so I had them introduce themselves on camera, pronounce their name for me because I work with a lot of international kids, and tell me one thing they loved. And that was an amazing way for me to connect with them without being able to be face-to-face. I really loved that. I also have a personal website for my music classroom that has a lot of information about me, a lot of resources that my kids can access throughout the year, and I'll add and take away things as the year goes on. And I think that that has been really helpful for them as well. From our curriculum, the thing that I look at the most is our scope and sequence, um, which is a really fancy way to say like a pacing guide. There's like a list of concepts that each grade level should cover. And then the scope and sequence, how it is in Denton, which is where I student taught and where I had my first year of teaching, has the whole school year mapped out. And each concept shows you when you should start prepping that concept, when you should kind of sneak it in without telling anybody, the exact day you should present it, and then when, like from then on, when you should be practicing it and how. And I found that to be extremely helpful because then I can help my kids stay on track with everybody else in the district, even if we're not doing everything exactly the same. And then I also personally, I really love empowering my students to know what they're learning and how they learned it and how they personally, individually are doing on that subject. So I took my big bulletin board at the front of the room and I turned it into like kind of a grading chart, but not quite. So there were 4 colors. It was like yellow, red, yellow, green, and then blue was at the end. And I labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's a grading system that most elementary schools are changing to if they haven't already gotten there. So 1 means you don't really know what's going on. You need a lot more learning time. 2 means you've got it. You need some help. You need teacher help, and then you can get it. If it's a 3, which is the goal, like this is where you want kids to be at, is a 3, they can do it on their own. If they reach a 4 on a concept, they could teach it to another kid, or they can use that concept to learn something else. They can explore with it. So I took every single concept. Like if I knew in 3rd grade I had to teach ticka ticka, which is 4 16th notes, I printed out a card with each class and a ticka ticka, and I moved it along as this whole class progressed. So that way a kid could think about, what have we even learned this year? What even are we doing in music? And they could look at the bulletin board and see what they had done and remember. I think that's really important for kids to be able to empower themselves and remember what they're learning. That's something that, yeah, that's my favorite tool that I've used. Last year, I had a lot of struggles with that because my school was very low income, which presented a lot of benefits and a lot of struggles. So we worked a lot of the school year to get parent connection, especially because it was a brand new school. It was just opening. So we worked really, really hard on getting parent connection. And by the end, I was definitely building those relationships. I think the trick is that you just have to offer families food. If you want them to come to an evening event, you have to have food. And I'm not kidding. Just have food, and they will come. This year, I'm struggling a little bit more, but on my Seesaw app, you can open it up to parents to join the course, and then parents can see what their kids are doing. They can see what the assignments are. They can contact me directly. They can ask questions. They can help their kids with the assignments. That's been really wonderful as well. And I think Dojo has that same feature where you can contact parents directly. So that's been really wonderful. I hope as we move forward, I know my school is really known for having a lot of parent involvement, which I'm really looking forward to. I think you just have to be really creative to find ways to connect with parents. And the first thing you need to be doing, especially if you feel like, okay, this kid's gonna need some phone calls home, which will happen, you have to start calling that parent like first day you meet that kid and be like, oh my goodness, I loved talking to your student today. These are two things they did great. Because you do not want to be your first phone call home to a kid who probably has a lot of phone calls home to be a negative conversation. You want to have that relationship established with the parent already, and you want to, more than anything, I found it was useful to help, like ask the parent for help. Like how do you find your child behaves the best in transitions? Like how do you prep them for transitions? How do you prep them to move from part of the room to part of the room? What do they enjoy doing? And that is a great way to get a parent on your side and a great way to get everyone fighting for the same thing, which is just to keep the child engaged. That was really overwhelming. It was overwhelming, but it was super exciting. When you open a brand new school, that there's just a world of possibilities for you, and I found that to be just the most exciting thing. There were, there's a lot of technical troubles towards the beginning, like our building wasn't ready, like not all of our supplies came in on time. But then at the same time, I got to unwrap like 20 brand new orphan instruments that got shipped from Germany. Like, what the heck? Nobody gets to do that ever. It was so cool. And then I got to like kind of design like the choir program. I got to set the precedent for how many performances there were going to be a year. I found that the biggest struggle with that is that every single person in the school is overwhelmed all the time. So if you want to plan something, you have to plan in advance, and you have to be communicative, and you have to be very open and flexible. That was not my strong suit coming from undergrad. That didn't come naturally to me, being flexible. So that is something that I've definitely taken a hard look at for myself, and I have adjusted. And that is like the one thing that I really have still been working on, and I probably will until I die. Yes, being flexible and communicate early and look into opportunities that excite you. And I think that's true if you take over for any job. Even if something happened in the past, that doesn't mean it has to continue that way. Go about things tactfully, but if something excites you and you want to lead this program in a new direction, go for it. Like the teacher that I took over for this year, she is a huge world drumming certified teacher. I know nothing about that. We have like 42 bonos in my room. I am that is super cool. I am not an expert in that. I really love folk dancing, so I'm going to start a folk dancing club when COVID goes away. And my principal's super pumped. I just expressed what I was interested in, and if somebody wants me to take over the drumming program, I'm happy to learn. But I started off just remembering like these are my strengths. This is what will bring me joy, and if you're joyful, the other people will be too. So yes, I started a choir. I am not a choir person. My first time being in a choir was at UNT, a women's chorus. Love it. I started out by sending out information as soon as students were registering. In Texas, typically at an elementary school, if you have a choir, your success is partially judged by how big the choir is. So I started sending information out immediately. I had a huge choir the first 3 weeks, and then it went down, and that's okay. I still had a study group by about mid-semester. I struggled with my students attending because we had a very high transient population. So a lot of students would move without notice, or without even they didn't even know they were moving. So they would just leave partway through a month. They would come for 2 weeks, and then we would never see them again. So that was tricky, but I just had kind of a come on, come all attitude, which is one technique you can use. The other one is just to audition all of your choirs. And I didn't think that would be a good choice for me, opening a new school and not having met any of these students yet. So I had a come on, come all attitude about it, but I did have choir president, choir vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. I don't think I called it treasurer. I think I called it something else, but someone who was like in charge of the paperwork, like collecting papers. Oh, I had a librarian. That was it. And we took attendance every day. Our president and vice president led our warm-ups starting second semester. Our choir rehearsals were an hour. They were after school. They were every single week unless I canceled it. I was positive I would need that full hour, and I did. I would not recommend doing a full hour because kids cannot sit still that long, and they need to go home and they need to have a snack. I don't understand how kids' bodies work, but that's what they need. Um, so I ended up having like the first 10 minutes of choir until 3:10. Like, you can talk and you can eat your snack. And then at 3:10, we are taking attendance and you are standing up and we're starting choir. We started with a full body stretch, and then we started with a lot of vocal warm-ups. There are a ton of resources for that online, tons for vocal warm-ups. You don't need to stick with like high school boring ones. You need to do lots of like chants, lots of fun body movements, lots of fun body percussion, anything that's going to get them just excited and playing, and make it like a challenge all the time. Like, oh my gosh, can you do this? And then they will engage every single time. After we did a warm up, we would work on a couple of different pieces. I really tried to single out different sections of pieces that we would have trouble on, like before we even started working on the piece. So we would work on just like a section of text if it were in a different language, like 2 weeks before I even brought out the music. So they would already be familiar with that. Or I would teach them a melody just on neutral syllables, a week before I brought out the piece, and then they would have already learned the hardest part. It's a great way to spoon feed your kids the music, and then they feel way more accomplished and way more willing to work with you. Something that I didn't do well with was explaining octavos to my students. I didn't give out octavos for the first semester because I know their music reading skills, and my kids were really low, so I knew that wasn't going to be successful. I started working with octavos second semester, but I didn't have the time really to make a plan about that, and that's something I regret. But in the future, I will work on that going forward. I just tried getting like a document scanner out and putting out an octavo and like pointing out, like, this is the key signature. You don't have to worry about that. This is the time signature. That means there's 4 beats. And then it really is like a whole different part of their brain that has to connect like what they do in music to what they do in choir. It's separate to them. It's completely separate. So you have to like make them pat the beat in a song with 5th graders because they don't understand like 4 beats in a measure is the same in music class and in an octavo. So you really have to walk them through every process. I also really stepped on the gas for expectations, like how we're sitting, whether or not we're talking. We have assigned seats. This is choir. It's a professional group. If you can't handle it, you're not going to be here. Like, we had a strike system, and honestly, like, it was harsh, but my kids really responded to the structure. I would recommend kind of taking the tone and talking to the music teacher you take over from and seeing how things went with that program before you make any big changes. But my kids were super excited, and like, once you kind of lay out the rules, you have to encourage them a ton, and then they'll be ready to go. There were a few songs that I took from my student teacher or my cooperating teacher that I knew I wanted to do. I had planned 4 concerts throughout the year with different grade levels and my choir. And the first one we did was called Pioneers because our mascot was a pioneer. So the 4th grade did a section on pioneers of like travel. So we talked about like Amelia Earhart, the Wright brothers, Henry Ford. I don't remember, but we all sang songs about like making cars, flying planes, going on trains. And I looked for music through that. I took from known rep from cooperating teachers. I contacted Cecile Johnson's my mentor. So I like was constantly texting her, asking her for help, all kinds of people. I just ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. And then my 5th graders did pioneers of like the civil rights movement. So they sang about, pushing for what's right, peace, and knowing justice needs to be continued. And then we talked about, Martin Luther King Jr., the Rosa Parks, and we specifically talked about Ruby Bridges because she was a child at their age that they could more relate to. And then my fifth graders, or my fourth and fifth grade choir, talked about like, we are now pioneers. And then they sang our new school song, which I had to write. And then they sang Make New Friends. And it was like, that was the end of the concert. So it was a lot of things. The first concert was a lot of easy stuff. We did one song with part work, and I started teaching it to them the day one of classes, and it was for fourth and fifth grade. And fourth grade learned one part, and fifth grade learned the other part, and they never overlapped because that is how I had to do it. And that's pretty typical. If you go into an elementary school classroom, you're gonna have to really work your way up to part work. It's not gonna happen like the first 3 years or 4 years. And one of my other mentors is David Rowland, and he said he knew he could start part work at his school when he was having a combined choir rehearsal, and the fourth graders had learned one part and the fifth graders had learned another part. And he heard a fourth grader singing the fifth grade part, even though he had not been taught it. And he was like, now next year I can teach part work because these kids know what they're doing. So wait until the kids show you that they can do it. Otherwise, stick with rounds, stick with one lines, stick with things that can be cool with percussion instruments, talking parts, solos. Don't try part work until you're completely ready. There are a lot of octavos available with one line parts that are really pretty. And I got a lot of those at TMEA. I just went through the booths and I like read them all, and I bought a ton, because they're like $1. So I bought a ton of them. And then once I had kind of an ear for my choir, I would play through them more and I could figure out, okay, this isn't going to work. This sounds good. This isn't going to be manageable, but maybe in a couple years kind of thing. I have a very unique relationship right now with my admin because when I was in undergrad, well, even before that, my current principal was hired for her first teaching job in the district by my dad, who is a principal, a former principal. He's retired now. So she's kind of known my family for a while. And then I worked for her during summer schools. All like 4 years of my undergrad, I worked summer school in my home district, and I was a paraprofessional for 2 years, and then I was an aide for 2 years. And my first year doing that, I worked for that principal. So we had a relationship, and so I kind of know her already, and our relationship is extremely friendly. The school that I'm in is really small, and we're all very friendly. Like, it's great. It's great. It's really wonderful. At my previous school, it was not like that. The admin definitely liked to feel like they had more say in what was going on, and they didn't want any teachers like running away from what they had originally discussed with them. So I had a lot of conversations where I sat down with the principal and I was like, okay, what would you like to see from the music program? And I have found that question gets you really far, because you might have amazing plans or you might have nothing. And your principal probably already has ideas. They probably will say like, I want a winter concert. I want this kind of concert, and I want this, and I want a school play. Like, they'll already have what they think are criteria in their brain. And if you do those things in whatever way you want, the admin will be happy and they will let you be. You are also going to get observed multiple times. If you stay in Texas, you'll get 2-hour-long observations in the first year. And they are kind of intense, but you will learn the system when you're student teaching because your supervisors will do the same system with you. So you'll learn that. There's a different system in every state. So when you first get onboarded, they'll tell you about it really quickly and then they'll move on. I would recommend talking to your like mentor teacher, that you'll get a mentor teacher, and talking to them and being like, what's going on? Please help me. Because that is the other thing that your admin is going to be looking for, is your observations. And you definitely want to be doing what they expect. So know the expectations, know whether or not you have to be submitting your lesson plans, because some principals want your lesson plans every single week. Some do not care. Know whether or not you have to have your learning targets up on the board. I didn't have that when I was student teaching. I had no idea I'd have my learning targets on the board. And my supervisor was like, "Claire, your learning targets on the board." So I immediately just put them up there, and that was an easy fix. Know whether or not you have to talk about your learning targets and say them every day. Know whether you have to, there are some weird expectations that are kind of go unsaid until they are said and it's too late. So definitely just ask questions, be in communication, and take those observations as an opportunity to learn. No one's going to fire you your first year unless you touch the kids or touch the money. No one's going to fire you your first year. So don't panic about that. It's going to be okay. I panicked after my first observation. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm terribly, I'm going to lose my job. No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. They know you're a first year teacher. It's going to be okay. So just realize that you need to improve on the 2 or 3 things that they really focused on, and everything is going to be okay. It's going to be good. I don't know that I have any questions that I would have asked. I think student teaching really made a natural transition for me to be a full-time teacher. The things that I wish I would have, well, first of all, y'all, every situation is different. So I can tell you X, Y, and Z, and maybe your life is leading you in a totally different direction. So I kind of struggle with giving personal advice to people I don't know personally, because I think that you need to cater it to yourself. But I was a music major and I was an RA. I was an RA for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. And I know other music majors that would say, absolutely not. That's way too much work. But that was exactly what I needed for my college career. The biggest thing that's in my brain right now, I've been talking to one of my other friends from high school who is another creative. She's in journalism. And we both are thinking about how we wish we had hobbies, because in high school and a lot of college, it's almost like a hobby. Music is your hobby. It's it's your job, but it's still fun. And once you're getting paid for it, I don't listen to music in my car now. I appreciate the silence. I treasure the lack of children yelling. I love my kids, but I need 20 minutes to myself a day. And I'm really grateful because I did do a lot of hobbies in undergrad, and I continue them now. I run a lot. I do a lot of knitting. I have a lot of houseplants. I go hiking a lot. And I think that is one of the most important things you can do, because sometimes your job is going to make you really angry. Sometimes it's going to make you really sad. Sometimes it's going to make you really nervous or just overwhelmed. And you don't have to pay attention to it all the time. You don't. Even though people tell you that you do, you don't. And you need to have something that you can go to that will bring you joy when music won't. As hard as that is for me to say, music will not always bring you joy. So you need to have a backup, and it needs to not be a person. It needs to be something that can always be with you. As we know now, people are not always going to be with you, even if you think they will be. It's hard to access people right now. So have those things that you can concentrate on, and that bring you joy. That's my biggest recommendation. My body gets up early. I go for a run. I go to work. I try to get to work early. I am someone who arrives late to everything. And that was a real struggle for me last year. That was one of my teacher goals. You have to make professional goals every year. And one of mine was being prompt, which happens to the best of us. But now I try to arrive to school as early as possible, get as much work done as I can, and I leave on time. I leave at my contracted time. And that's often frowned upon by the teacher community, is arriving at contracted hours and leaving at contracted hours. I do better work at home. So I don't carry any guilt with me when I go home. I leave at the time I need to leave. If I need to do something, fine. If I have a club meeting, fine. But I leave when I need to leave. And I don't carry guilt with me. I also don't do work in the evenings except on weekends. I do all of my lesson planning on my weekends. Um, this is something. When I was undergrad, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make all my lesson plans over the summer and I will be so prepared. No, 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 no. You have to make all of your lesson plans the week before. And I'm not saying that because I'm a slacker. I'm saying that because you have no idea how your kids are going to do that week. Because your kids come to you from all different environments. Maybe a class just had like a really bad day and there were like fights in that room, or someone went home sick because someone got vomited on. Like, you have no idea where they're coming to you from. And you have no idea how they're going to be receptive to it or if they're going to be able to process information. So you need to be able to be very flexible. And I reteach lessons sometimes if they need to. I do the exact same lesson. Kids love repetition. It is great for them. They are so excited when you teach them a song and they already know it. They feel like an expert. I could teach this song. Great. I'm so proud of you. They love it. They love repetition. Don't be afraid to reteach. I don't even know where I was going. I leave on my contracted time. I do all my planning over the weekends. The one thing that I do find really, really valuable that I did over the summer, and everyone called me crazy in my family because I was doing it on vacation, is that all of my songs that I knew that I was going to use, so like Apple Tree, Bow Wow Wow, Doggy Doggy, like all the songs you know you're going to use every single year, I just went and made a Google Slides for them in advance. I use Google Slides every single, like for a full day, I have all my Google Slides ready in one Google Slide. So I have like first grade, third grade, kindergarten, second grade, fifth grade. They're all ready to go in order. And I make slides for those songs so I can just pull them in and copy and paste. And then I don't have to take like 3 hours making fun graphics for my elementary school kids so they can understand what a quarter note is. Like, I do that over the summer. I don't need to waste my time this school year when I'm tired and I want to take a nap instead. I take naps all the time. Could not recommend them higher. Take a nap. Your brain doesn't work if you're sleepy. Naps are great. I also recommend, if you can, live with someone who will cook with you, because it was really hard for me coming home from work every day and cooking meals every single day. Like, I would go out sometimes and I would have dinner with friends and I would have people over, but like, that was really draining for me personally. So if I could recommend, like, if you're going to live with somebody, see if you can share the meal load. That's very helpful. Exercise, please exercise, because your day is so long and you need stamina. My stamina is gone. When I go back and have all these kids, I don't know how I'm going to do it because my body is trained to take a 2-hour nap every day. My stamina is completely gone. You're going to be on your feet from 7 a.m. until 3:30. Like, you will not sit down. You won't have a lunch. You will have a lunch and you'll be also answering emails, but you'll be eating and it'll be 20 minutes. It'll be terrible. And then you'll have to run to the copier and make something that you forgot to get, or because there was a line in the morning, and then you have to run back and you have to cut some shapes out because it's elementary school and you have to do things with shapes, and you won't be ready when your kids come back in. So get to school early and exercise, because your body will really need the stamina. Bring a water bottle to school, drink your water bottle in the morning and drink it in the afternoon. Drink the water. You need it. You really need it. Take your vitamins in the morning. Kids are icky. You will get sick. I got sick so many times. You will get sick the first year. It's just going to happen. Take all of your vitamins. Get your flu shot as soon as possible, now and forever. Pick out your clothes the night before. That's very helpful to me because I am somebody who likes to roll out of bed and then leave. For real, like, I see all these blank faces. Simple things like that truly, truly help. Because when you don't know what you're going to wear and you spill coffee on the one shirt you decided on, and you're like, are you kidding me? It can delay you 15 minutes, and then traffic's worse, and then you're 30 minutes late to work, and then you look unprofessional and your class is coming in when you're late. It's all, the more prepared you can be, the better. So I mentioned that I was a para for 2 sessions of summer school here in Missouri. Paraprofessionals are a position that every state is allowed to have, but there is not a very specific definition of what they do. So a paraprofessional is a non-certified person that is hired to be in the school building to assist. In general, in a lot of states, a paraprofessional is hired to assist with special education. In Texas, I have found personally that is not always the case. But in most other states, paraprofessionals are hired to assist with special education. So when I was a para for those 2 summers, I got assigned a kiddo or 2 each summer who needed extra support, who needed like a full-on adult helping them through the day. So like my first year, I had a kiddo with like mostly functioning autism, and I just helped him stay focused throughout the day. We took breaks. I just helped him with whatever he needed to do. I was fresh out of high school. I was 18 years old. I got no training, none. The next year, I was with a very, very low functioning child, physically and mentally. He was wheelchair bound and he was almost mute. And again, I had no training and I was 19 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just sitting there like going crazy because I knew that I could be helping these students way more if I just had training. And then, of course, I'm a music teacher. So I was like, well, these kids need extra support in music too. What are paraprofessionals doing in the music environment? And I brought these questions to Don Taylor, who is my UNT mentor. And he said, let's figure it out. And we did a ton of research. I started over the summer, my sophomore year, and throughout my junior year, I did a huge lit review of paraprofessionals and how they exist. They're also known as paraeducators, and how they are in every single environment throughout the United States. There is some literature, there's not a ton. And the general statement is like paraprofessionals don't get trained. Paraprofessionals are paid hourly. And because of those 2 things, and they work with the highest needs kids, but because of those 3 things, the turnover rate is extremely high. People quit all the time because they don't get trained. So they have really low job satisfaction. They work with kids who need the most trained teachers and they get paid terribly. Their compensation is awful. So that really upsets me because paraprofessionals are not required to be certified, but a lot of research says that when a certified teacher sees a child with high needs with another adult next to them, that teacher thinks, okay, that kid doesn't need as much help, so I'm going to go help the other kids. When in reality, that kid still needs more help. And the paraprofessional ends up teaching them oftentimes incorrectly because they don't have certification. It's a very frustrating situation to me. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the fact that there's not enough money to give extra time to train paraprofessionals. So I did a huge qualitative research study. I did it first at the Texas level. I used the TMEA contact list, and I sent out a really big survey that I created with Dr. Taylor, and we had to create the survey, and we had to like go through the IRB and like a bunch of different steps to get it verified because there wasn't a real survey that we could use. So we had to create our own tool. And then once we got that data back, I took an independent study with the Honors College my senior year, the semester before I student taught. That's called like their capstone, maybe research course. I took the intro to research course my freshman year, and then I took like their capstone research course. And it was an independent study, and all I did was write this paper. And then I presented the initial findings at TMEA at their poster session, which was really, really cool. And then I got to have one of those little banners on my TMEA thing that said presenter. It was so cool. And then we continued the study because the results weren't very helpful. And so we sent it nationally through NAFME. We had them send out the survey a bunch of different times, and we collected all the data and we kind of succinct it all. And honestly, I didn't do a ton of the ending work because Dr. Taylor was on a sabbatical and I was teaching. So I did like almost all the front work, and then he did the last little bit of the discussion about our results. And our results are that in the state of Washington, there is a lot of communication between the paraprofessionals and the music teacher about how to best serve the child in the environment. And that training and that conversation does not exist in any other state. And it's really hurting special education. Students who receive special education, the professionals who work in it, the teachers who are serving the students, it's really hurting everybody. And I wish that I had a better solution right now, but that is where we needed to start. And that is what is published. And you can check on it if you are a member of NTMEA. Nope, not NTMEA, NAFME online. You can check it out. It's in there. It's just got published like last week in their online journal. I think it's in the first issue of like the 20th volume or the 25th volume. I don't know, the one that just came out. It's in the first issue. And I am the lead author, and that's very exciting. I just want to say that you are doing great. I'm so proud of you. UNT is a very hard school, and you're doing awesome. And I took every single opportunity that I could when I was an undergrad, and it drove me crazy, but I think it was great. I also would recommend personally to take advantage of every single musical opportunity that you can. Go to as many concerts as you can. Go to concerts outside of your discipline and join as many ensembles as you can. I was in steel pan, and I was in like one of the vocal jazz groups, and then I was in concert bands, and I was in choirs. And that is really what has brought my joy of music back when I've lost it, is being able to remember that I am a musician, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says, like that is who I am. And I can show you, and I can show myself by all these different things that I'm able to do. So if you're ever feeling down about that, just remember, like, you are here, you deserve to be here, and find some joy and find something new to do in music. And I think that that will help a lot.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I really appreciated you talking about exercising and how you get to work early and just those little things that like has kind of set my mind at ease. Like it's gonna be okay, you'll find your routine, but make sure you're drinking water, you know? So yeah, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I also, like, you're gonna figure it out. But one of the biggest things that I thought about was like when I was trying to move to my apartment for my job, like, where is going to be the easiest route to get to school? Where's my back route? Where can I find a running path that's like nearby my apartment that's safe? Where is there a grocery store nearby? Also, you can't go to Walmart in your sweatpants anymore because your students will see you. And that is the worst. It's the worst. I started going to the grocery store like over by my partner's across town when I was in Texas because I didn't want my students to see me all the time. Like it's great. It's so much fun to see your kids outside of school, but sometimes you don't want to see them when you're buying like 3 packs of Oreos and like toilet paper. Um, you will find your routine, and it will be really hard, but it's hard for everybody until you get into it. It's really hard. It's hard for me right now. It's really still is. I'm not an expert at all, but it's going to be okay. Yeah, I would suggest just giving yourself a lot of grace because everyone struggles with the things that you're going to struggle with, and you are struggling with now. Also, just like I feel like I see a lot of dorm rooms. Your RAs are great. Go talk to them if you need help, like for real. They're cool people. If you need help, they are there.
Any other comments, questions? Compliments are always nice too. I like your plants, Claire.
Thank you. I have many, but those are some. Oh, I got blue light glasses recently on Amazon, which I don't like to use Amazon, but I needed them. These are blue light glasses. I don't have my real glasses on right now, but I was having a real hard time going to sleep when I was on Zoom all day. and I'm guessing a lot of you are staring at computer screens all day. I feel like if I had these in undergrad, it would have helped me a lot. They're just they're basically clear, but they block a lot of like the blue light coming from screens, and 10 out of 10. They're great. They reduce headaches. They let you go to sleep. Wonderful. Also, when I was at UNC, I went to the rec all the time. Nobody was ever at the rec. Go to the rec. It's great. No one will make fun of you if you don't know how to use the machines. You can ask how to use them. No one will make fun of you if you don't know how to use the weights. You can ask somebody. Like so many times I was using free weights. I remember my junior year, I really wanted to use free weights and like make my arms really strong because I didn't want to be in conducting and like have like really flabby arms, which is like not a thing. You don't worry about that. But I remember I was like pumping weights at the rec, and like this very old guy was like, "Oh, you're doing that wrong." And he like corrected me. I was like, "Oh, thanks, dude." And then I made a gym pal. Go to the rec. It's a great place to be. I know you have to wear a mask right now, but it's good for your body. I'm a really big proponent of just going to the gym, and it makes you happier just going to the gym because you get like the endorphins, but then you also feel better about yourself and you feel like you've accomplished something. I really truly recommend going to the gym.
Good. Always good. Anything else? Anybody before we wrap up? Going once. Going twice.
Yeah, I can say something. Yeah, so thank you for doing this. This is great. I'm actually in elementary and student teaching right now.
Bless your soul.
Yeah. And I did middle school before. That was only like 6 weeks though. I guess it was short for some reason. But yeah, I could totally see myself doing middle school, but I have to admit, minus a few kids that are like tornadoes or Tasmanian devils, like I think that elementary is very peaceful and really nice. And the people in the teachers lounge are super nice and friendly. And there was like nobody in the middle school teachers on for some reason, you know. And obviously I haven't been in every middle school, but yeah, elementary seems to be kind of special actually. So I can kind of see why you're doing it.
Absolutely. When I walk into an elementary school building, I just like feel at home. Where are you
Yeah.
student teaching?
So I was at Dowell Middle School in McKinney before, and now I'm doing Valley Creek Elementary.
Okay. Who's your cooperative teacher there?
Right now it's Kara Nelson, and before it was Rebecca Grossman.
Okay. I think McKinney's like really heavy in Kodai. They're a great district.
Yeah, definitely. So far, it's been pretty cool.
If you're elementary, get your levels as soon as possible. Like go do them. It's beautiful, guys. It's so beautiful. Go get your levels at SMU. It is such a sacred space. It makes me so happy. I've only taken one level and I already feel like if I hadn't taken that, I would have been a disaster teacher. Like 12 out of 10. Please go take your levels. If you want to do Orff, Dalcroze, Kodai, I don't care. If you're going to do elementary, please go get your levels. You will be happy with it. You will not regret it. 10 out of 10. For real.
I have one other question, actually.
Yeah.
So with the certification tests, which is on my mind for sure, because November is like the earliest and we can do a practice test. What kind of feedback would you have about that in your memory of it? Like what sorts of things you ran into trouble with that you wish you would have studied more on?
So if you don't know yet, there are 2 tests that you have to take. The first one is like a general teaching test about like being an educator and being around children. A lot of that, I grew up in school environments, so that kind of came naturally to me. A lot of it is common sense. That one I didn't worry about as much. The music one was much harder. It was weirdly hard. There were a lot of music history questions, like way more than there should be, in my opinion. There are listening questions on there. like Dr. Brand is really getting you the good stuff when you're taking pre-1750. Like there are listening questions on there. There are a lot of websites you can look at that will prep you. I really recommend them. Don't pay for them, but there are resources out there to help you. The other thing with the music one is that they'll ask you a question and it'll be like a super long question. And they're not really, there's one question that really stuck out to me when I was taking the practice test. And it was like, your PTA bought you a bunch of new ORF instruments a week ago, and the PTA meeting is in 2 days, and they want you to have an event at the PTA meeting to show off your instruments. What do you do? So the point is like, you have ORF instruments, you have 2 days, what are you gonna do? And the options were like, have your best kids play a piece, have the instruments out and let the parents play, or like have the kids recite a poem and take out some of the bars so it was pentatonic and have them play whatever they wanted so it didn't sound bad. And I was like, oh, maybe it would be cool if we didn't have any prep to have the parents play. So that's what I put in the practice test. They weren't even asking about your judgment. They were asking to know if you knew that ORF instruments had bars that you could take out. I had no idea. I had no idea. Like, they have like weird questions that you have to like read 2 or 3 times to figure out what the actual question is. So that's what, when there's a long question, there's some sort of trick in there. But that's my advice.
Yeah. So you say don't pay for anything, but there's one resource that's like $20 for students. Do you think if a person was willing to spend a little bit of money that it would be worth it, or was the free stuff that you found just fine?
Honestly, I didn't prep that much. But I do know people who have been unsuccessful. Access the free stuff first. And if you still feel unprepared, then I would recommend paying for something. I think I did one of those crappy things where I like said I was going to pay in a week and then I was going to take the test the next day and like never paid them. So that's not a very good way to do it, but I know UNT has some free resources if you contact your advisor or / only contact Anna White. If you contact her, she will have resources for you. If you need to, you can pay for stuff, but try the free stuff first. I don't think it's worth it. You guys are doing great. I can't believe that you're still on this Zoom call.
I know.
I would have checked out by now.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up anyway if no one has anything else to say. That way we can all go relax on our Tuesday evening. But let's do one final round of Zoom applause. There's the confetti thing now, which is fun. My Zoom just updated 2 days ago. That's cool. Thank you so much for giving your time to us and just giving your emotional energy to probably relive some things to help us. We really appreciate you being here. Do you have anything you want to say?
Just thanks for listening to me ramble. I really wish you guys the best. People are there for you to succeed as much as it might seem like they're not. You're doing great. You're going to be great. You're going to be great. If you're here and you're trying, that means you're just already leagues ahead of everybody else. So that's awesome. Keep doing it.